Vandeham Shri Guru Shiyata Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatam Vidam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shivishikam Vidamscha Om Ajnanatimarandasya Gyanajana Shalakya Chakshuru Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Gurava Bistam Supurakam Guraganara Sisha Sambhushitam Chintya Samasta Vedanipanam Shirupa Patanugam Govinda Abhidam Ujwalam Varatanum Bhakjanvidam Sundaram Vande Vishwaguruncha Divyad Bhagavat Premno Ibijapradam Devam Divyatanum Suchandavaranam Balakachelanchitam Sandrananda Puram Sadekavaranam Vairagya Vidyamburim Sri Siddhanta Nidhim Subhakti Lasitam Saraswatanam Baram Bandetam Shubharam Madeka Sharanam Nyashishvara Shridharam Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratabhishe Namah. We're hearing from Sri Chaitanya Bhagawat by Srila Vrindaban Das Thakur with a translation by Sarvabhavana Das. And today I'm starting with the Antya-lila. We finished the Madhya-lila. So this is the first chapter of Antya-lila. The reunion at the house of Adwaita Acharya. Antya-khanda, chapter 1. I worship two brothers, Sri Chaitanya and Sri Nityananda. They are the most magnanimous Supreme Lords, transcendently situated and embodying inconceivable spiritual potency. These two Supreme Controllers have now appeared upon this earth in their eternal forms. O Lord, you are the eternal truth, unconditioned by past, present, and future, and yet you have now appeared as the son of Sri Jagannath Mishra. I offer repeated obeisances unto you along with your intimate servitors, your unalloyed devotees, your sons, your renounced Goswami disciples, and the devotional process of chanting the holy names of Lord Krishna, and your consorts, Sri Bhu Devi, who appeared as Sri Vishnu Priya, Sri Devi, who appeared as Sri Lakshmi Priya, and Sri Leela Devi, also known as Neela or Durga, who manifested Navadip Dham, and the two Gadadhars. One is Sri Gadadhar Pandit, the expansion of Srimati Radharani, and the other is Sri Gadadhar Bhatta from South India, who is Sri Ranga Devi, and Damodar, Narahari, Ramananda, Jagadananda, and all your unlimited associates. All glories to Sri Krishna Chaitanya, the beloved Lord of Lakshmi Devi, the goddess of fortune. Sri Nityananda is most dear to him. All glory to the Lord of Vaikuntha and the best amongst all the sannyasis. All glory to his illustrious devotees. Sri Gaurachandra, you are the friend of the fallen souls. Please place your lotus feet upon the throne of my heart. Please hear attentively the topics described in the Antya-khanda, which deal with the Lord's activities after taking sannyas and his travel to Jagannath Puri. The night of his sannyas initiation, Lord Chaitanya remained in Katwa. Immediately after the completion of the sannyas ceremonies, the Lord instructed Mukunda to sing. He stood up and began to dance vigorously. The devotees encircled him and joined in the chorus. The Lord was immediately overcome with ecstasy. As the Lord danced, he experienced heavy breathing, laughter, perspiration, shivering, horripilation, and roaring. Then with a voice like thunder and the roaring of 1,000 lions, he crashed to the He crashed to the ground. The impact of his fall sent shock waves amongst the spectators. The kamandalu flew out of his hand to one side, and the sannyas danda went in another direction. The Lord became enraptured and maddened with love of himself. Then dancing and swirling, he went to his guru and embraced him with glowing pleasure. In the Lord's merciful embrace, Kesha Bharati was enlightened with love of Hari. He began to dance, singing and pirouetting ecstatically. Similarly, his kamandalu and danda also flew from his grip. He became oblivious to the external world, intoxicated with Krishna prema. He rolled on the ground, unaware that his clothes no longer properly covered his body. The Lord was pleased to see Kesha Bharati in such ecstasy. They danced together, putting the devotees into fits of ecstasy. The devotees appreciated this rare sight with vociferous chanting of the holy name. I offer my obeisances at the feet of Sri Kesha Bharati, the most stalwart sannyasi, for he danced with the Supreme Lord, whose association is difficult to achieve, even for the personified Vedas. He is the guru of the Lord of the entire unlimited creation. The night flitted by as the guru and his disciple danced together. At dawn, the Lord begged leave of his guru, saying, I will enter the forest, and there I will find the Lord of my heart, Sri Krishna Chandra. His guru replied, I will accompany you and relish with you the ecstasy of Sankirtan. The Lord benedicted his guru and allowed him to accompany him, requesting him to walk in front while he followed behind. As the Lord was preparing to leave, he embraced Chandrasekhar Acharya and began to cry loudly. Lord Chaitanya said, please return home to all the Vaishnavas and tell them that I have left for the forest. Please go back without the slightest remorse. I am always imprisoned in your heart. You are my father and I, your son. You are my eternal associate. The Lord then left. Chandrasekhar Acharya was overpowered by strong emotions and fell unconscious. No one can understand the Lord's inconceivable potency, and therefore even the unbearable pain of separation can keep a person alive. After some time, when he regained consciousness, Chandrasekhar Acharya left for Navadip. He informed everyone in Navadip that the Lord had entered the forest wearing a sannyas robe. The news deeply pained all the devotees, and they cried out in the excruciating pain of separation. The devastating effect of the news was widespread and intense. Adwaita Acharya, numb with grief, cried, I cannot live, and fell unconscious. The heart-rending cries of the devotees could have melted the cruelest heart. Sachi Devi stood motionless like a wooden doll in stony silence, shocked by the news. The other ladies fell to the ground, wailing piteously. Adwaita Acharya, regaining consciousness, exclaimed, what further use do I have for this life now that my Lord has gone away? I will throw myself into the Ganga, and if you restrain me, I shall do it in the darkness of night. The throbbing pain of separation rendered everyone restless and gloomy. They felt sick, uneasy, and ready to finish their lives. Although the devotees are grave and learned persons, now they were greatly anxious, their minds in turmoil. As the devotees were preparing to end their lives in their unbearable misery, suddenly a heavenly voice caught their attention. O Adwaita Acharya and all devotees, do not be sad. Go worship Krishna happily. Your Lord and Master will return in a few days and be amongst you again. Give up your resolve to take your own lives, because you shall be with the Lord just as before. Hearing their heavenly message, the devotees forgot about giving up their lives and sat around Sachi Devi singing the Lord's glories. Gaurachandra, the best of the sannyasis, now traveled with Nityananda, Gadadhar, and Mukunda in a westerly in a westerly direction, all the time chanting the holy name. In front of the Lord went Keshavarti, and behind him was Govinda. Walking like the king of the forest, the Lord was followed by thousands of wailing people. They were all around, stamping through the difficult forest, but still they followed undeterred. Filled with compassion, the Lord turned to them and said, "All of you go home and chant Krishna's holy name. May you soon be blessed to have Krishna as the priceless gift of your life. May that devotional mellow, which is desired by Shiva, Brahma, Sukadeva Goswami, and other great personalities, appear in your hearts." The devotees loudly voiced their appreciation and joy and remained home as if in trance. The Lord walked into the district of Radhadesh and blessed the entire tract of land. Their district is pleasant with ashwatthama trees everywhere. Cows were grazing peacefully in the beautiful natural setting, and the Lord, upon seeing this scene, began to dance blissfully. Devotees quickly gathered around him, singing and clapping. The Lord chanted, "Hari, Hari," in a roaring voice that boomed across the universe, and whoever heard him was purified of his material contamination. In this way, he graced the residents of the Radhadesh district, dancing all the way. The Lord said, I want to stay in the forest in the vicinity of the Vakreshwar deity. It is quiet and lonely there. The Lord then continued on his way, accompanied by his followers, dancing and singing ecstatically. The local residents ran out to see the Lord and his wonderful dancing. Although Sankirtan had never been performed in that area before, and no one had ever seen the effects of Krishna Prema manifest in a devotee, now they were offering obeisances to the Lord as he danced and wept in ecstasy. This was a rare experience for them. Amongst them were a few fallen sinners who asked, "Why is he crying so much?" Nevertheless, even those fallen souls were affected by the scene, and by the Lord's mercy, they also began to roll on the ground crying. The entire universe was now echoing the Lord's name, yet there remained a few who refused to chant. Anyone who is against the chanting of the Lord's name is indeed the worst kind of sinner. Finally, at the day's end, the Lord with all his followers came to a village and spent the night in the house of a pious Brahmin. There the Lord took his meal and went to sleep. The devotees slept all around the Lord. However, just a few hours before dawn, Sri Chaitanya quietly stole away from the rest of the devotees and left for an unknown destination. When the devotees awoke early next morning, they found the Lord missing. Again, they were swept with waves of despair and melancholy, and began to weep bitterly. They searched for him everywhere, inquiring from everyone in the village, but to no avail. They left the roads and paths and went into the fields. The Lord was absorbed in the transcendental ecstasy of love of Krishna. He walked in the middle of the expansive meadows, wept and wailed loudly. He loudly called out, "O Krishna, my Lord, my Father, the Lord of Vaikuntha, the Supreme Lord of all living entities, and the best of the sannyasis," wept openly. He cried so loudly that he could be heard several miles away. The devotees searching for the Lord quite a distance from where he was, heard this out of the ordinary crying. They began to follow the sound and soon saw the Lord crying loudly. Seeing their beloved Lord weeping, the devotees also began to cry. Finally, Mukunda started to sing. When the Lord heard the kirtan, he began to dance, and all the devotees surrounded their Lord and happily joined the kirtan. The Lord then continued his journey westward, dancing along the way with the devotees following, singing kirtan. When they were only 8 miles from Vakeshwar, the Lord decided to change direction. He turned around and went east, still absorbed in the ecstasy of dancing. He was blissful and laughing to himself. Finally, he revealed the mystery behind his laughter and change of direction. He said, I am going to Nilachala, Puri, because Lord Jagannath has instructed me. You should come to Puri immediately. The devotees were relieved to learn of the Lord's plan. No one can know the workings of the Lord's mind save his intimate devotees, and then only by his mercy may they know his innermost desires. Who can fathom why the Lord was first going to Vrikeshwar, and then why finally he did not go? It seems that the Lord, in a deceptive way, was purifying the residents of Radhadesh by his presence. There was no other reason for him to go to Radhadesh. The Lord now journeyed towards the Ganga, which lay at a distance. He was always engrossed in the ecstasy of love of Krishna, yet he saw that the residents of the tract of land through which he was passing were disinterested in devotional life. No one chanted the holy name of Krishna. Krishna Kirtan was alien to them. Pain, the Lord said, why did I come to such a country where they never chant Krishna's holy name? It was a grievous mistake for which I must relinquish my life. Just then a group of little cowherd lads who were grazing their cows passed by. One of them was a very pious boy, and he suddenly began chanting Krishna's name. The Lord was extremely happy to hear the holy name from the mouth of this little boy. Joyfully, he relished the moment and said, for the last few days I have passed through many villages and nowhere was Krishna's name being chanted. Suddenly now, unexpectedly, a young lad is chanting the holy name. Tell me what could be the reason? The Lord spoke again, how far is the Ganga from here? The devotees replied, about an hour's walk. The Lord continued, this is the greatness of Mother Ganga. Due to her influence, one hears the chanting of Krishna's name here. The breezes from the Ganga have purified this place. Glorifying Ganga Devi in this manner, the Lord increased everyone's reverence toward her. The Lord spoke again, I will cleanse myself completely in the Ganga today. Then he restarted his journey. The Lord walked with the pace and grace of a maddened lion, and the devotees ran to catch up with him. The Lord's eagerness to see Ganga Devi quickened his steps, and the devotees found it impossible to keep up with him. Only Lord Nityananda, also walking like a lion, accompanied him. They reached the banks of Ganga Devi early in the evening. Sri Chaitanya and Nityananda entered her waters with relish and thoroughly washed themselves, profusely praising the Ganga with selected verses. They drank her cooling waters and offered obeisances to her. The Lord prayed, O Ganga Devi, your waters are the ambrosia of life of Krishna. Lord Shiva is conversant with the truth about you. Such is your potency that the mere utterance of your name invokes devotional service to the Supreme Lord, and the result of drinking your water is miraculous. By your mercy, living entities acquire a taste for chanting Krishna's holy name. Because of your influence, even the mild beasts and birds that live close to your waters become more fortunate than wealthy men who live far away from you. No one is more potent than you in purifying sins. In fact, you have descended to this material plane only to alleviate the sins of the living entities. As the Lord glorified Ganga Devi in this manner, she became abashed, for she was being glorified by the Supreme Lord, whose feet are her very source. How wonderful is the incarnation of the Supreme Godhead in the form of Sri Chaitanya. One who hears these verses in praise of Ganga Devi with faith will certainly develop attachment for Sri Chaitanya. That night, the Lord and Nityananda Prabhu stayed in a righteous Brahmin's house. The next day, the rest of the devotees arrived and found Sri Chaitanya. Together, they again proceeded toward Nilachala, Puri. Sri Chaitanya said to Nityananda Prabhu, My dear magnanimous Prabhu Nityananda, you must immediately leave for Navadip. Srivas Pandit and the other devotees are grievously afflicted due to my departure. You must alleviate their pain. Take this message from me to them, that on my way to Nilachala, I will be waiting for them in Shantipur, in the house of Adwaita Acharya. You bring them there right away. I'm going to Fulia to see Haridas. Sending off Nityananda, Sri Chaitanya headed for the village of Fulia. Having received his orders from Lord Chaitanya, Nityananda Prabhu journeyed toward Fulia in exultation. Having received his orders from Lord Chaitanya, Nityananda Prabhu journeyed toward Fulia in exultation. Nityananda is always absorbed in the bliss of love of Krishna, his voice booming like thunder in ecstasy. Now he traveled almost like a mad elephant, oblivious of everything around him, no rules or taboos restricting his actions. He stopped under a kadamba tree for a while, standing like Krishna, his body bending in three places. He began to play the flute rapturously. When he saw some cows grazing nearby, he rolled on the earth and then, moving like a calf, he sucked milk from the cows. Sometimes he would break out into a dance while walking, unaware of his surroundings, always submerged in bliss. At other times, he just sat down on the road and wept so bitterly that it would pain one to see him in that condition. Then he might suddenly stop weeping and start shaking with peals of laughter. Then again, he would take off the clothing covering his body and wrap it around his head, leaving him naked. At other times, he would feel in the mood of Ananta Sesha. Making serpent-like movements, he would enter the waters of the Ganga, float and swim gracefully in the currents. Lord Nityananda's potencies are inconceivable, transcendental, and mysterious. His timeless compassion is unmatched in all the three worlds. Sri Nityananda swam in the Ganga all the way to Navadip, where he got out onto the banks and, withdrawing his inner mood within himself, went straight to the Lord's house. What he saw pained him greatly. Sachi Devi had been totally fasting for 12 days. Life remained in her only on the strength of her devotional service. She was completely imbued with Mother Yashoda's mood of pining for her son, and tears rained down from her eyes. Whoever she met, she would eagerly ask, "Are you from Mathura? What is the news of Krishna and Balaram?" And soon, in ecstatic spiritual bliss, "Are you from Mathura? What is the news of Krishna and Balaram?" and swoon in ecstatic spiritual bliss. Then, gradually, she would again start speaking. "There, I can hear their flutes and horns. Is Akrura coming to get them?" In this manner, submerged in the mood of intense separation, she had completely forgotten her physical needs. Nityananda fell at Sachi Devi's feet, offering his obeisances. The devotees greeted him enthusiastically, but his presence merely intensified their pining, and they began to weep. Mother Sachi Mata cried out, "My son, my darling boy," and swooned. The devotees felt a surge of new emotions ripping through their hearts. They embraced Nityananda and were bathed with his tears of ecstasy. He calmed them down and told them the good news. He said, "You must come immediately. The Lord is awaiting us." Nityananda said, "You must come immediately. The Lord is awaiting us in Adwaita Acharya's house in Shantipur. I've come here to take you there." The devotees who had become lean and weak due to intensely missing their Lord now received new life. They were jubilant and loudly chanted Krishna's name. Sachi Devi had not touched food or water from the day Nimai left her house to take sannyas 12 days earlier. Only thoughts of Nimai could sustain her life. For Nityananda, her condition was unbearable. He spoke soft, reassuring words to her. "Nothing is unknown to you about the mysterious activities of Krishna. What knowledge can I give you about Krishna? Do not burden your heart with despair. Even the Vedas personified cannot receive the grace and good fortune already in your possession. For that supreme object sought by the Vedas is your son. He is the life and soul of every living entity, and that same Supreme Personality has accepted all spiritual and material responsibilities concerning you. He made this promise with his hand upon his chest. The Lord always knows what is best for everyone. You should simply surrender everything at his feet and live happily and peacefully. Now, Mother, please cook for the satisfaction of all the devotees, for this is devotional service to Krishna. Everyone is eager to taste your cooking. If you remain fasting, then Krishna has to fast also. I'm extremely desirous of relishing the offerings prepared for Krishna by you." Nityananda's sweet words were like soothing balm to her afflicted heart. She got up and went to make the necessary arrangements for the cooking. First she fed Nityananda Prabhu, and then she fed all the Vaishnavas. She carefully saw to it that everybody was fully satisfied and then sat down to eat herself. The devotees were relieved that Sachi Devi had broken her 12-day fast. Enlivened by the prasad, the Vaishnavas prepared to go and meet their beloved Lord with Nityananda Prabhu. The residents of Navadip were by now familiar with the details of Nimai's sannyas ceremony. The Lord's wonderful sannyas name, Krishna Chaitanya, had a miraculous effect on them. They chanted aloud the Lord's name and glorified him. When the people of Navadip came to know that the Lord was presently in Fulia village, they became elated and decided to go and see him there. Old, young, men, women, and children all hastened to Fulia, chanting jubilantly, "Hari, Hari." Those atheists and fault finders who had previously been vituperative against the Lord were now eager to reach Fulia with their friends. They said, "He was born in Navadip, but his real identity remained a secret. Out of ignorance, we maligned his work and spiritual mission. Now we must fall at his feet and beg forgiveness. Only then will all our offenses be exonerated." Thousands of people flocked to the pier. The boatmen were in a dilemma, for everyone wanted to be first, and they could not risk crossing the river overloaded with people. Therefore, many found their own means to cross the river. Some went in small dinghies. Others tied themselves to upturned earthen water vessels, which made them float easily. Someone used a raft made out of banana tree trunks, which was also very handy. Even pregnant women dared the crowd and jostling. Breathing heavily from exertion, they simply chanted Sri Chaitanya's name and somehow made their journey. For the blind and lame, The way became suddenly broad and facile just by remembering Chaitanya's name. A boat carrying hundreds found it impossible to make the other bank and capsized in midstream. This, of course, did not deter the people. They jubilantly chanted the Lord's name and floated upstream. The people's heart were so infected with joy that it seemed they actually floated in an ocean of divine mirth. Those who did not know how to swim seemed to have miraculously become buoyant. By the grace of the Lord, they also were able to cross the river without difficulty. The sky reverberated with ecstatic sounds of the holy name. The people had only one thought in their mind: to reach Fulia, disregarding all comfort and bodily needs. They joined in the mass chanting with carefree, happy abandon. Their loud cries of Hari, 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 Hari echoed in the vaults of the cosmic creation as they approached Fulia. This wonderful sound of many people chanting reached the Lord, and he came out to greet them. The people saw him and held their breath. His exquisite appearance as a sannyasi and his extraordinary beautiful face, which eclipsed the beauty of millions of moons, were a memorable vision for all. The Lord was continuously chanting the holy name as tears of ecstasy cascaded down his cheeks. Everyone was now falling to the ground to offer their obeisances. People fell on top of each other in their fervor to show respect to their Lord. They did not care if there were thorns on the ground. They were all boundlessly happy. They lifted their hands and prayed to the Lord for his protection and shelter, crying out, Seva, save us. The village of Fulia was now teeming with millions of people who were captivated by the infinitely charming face of the Lord. The fields and roads were overflowing with people who had forgotten about returning to their houses, for they had even for just a moment beheld the lustrous, benign face of the Lord. The Lord blessed them all with his merciful glance and proceeded towards Shantipur. When he arrived at Adwaita Acharya's house, Adwaita Prabhu fell at his beloved Lord's lotus feet. He began to weep, relieved of the miserable pain of separation. He remained prostrate, his arms curled around the Lord's lotus feet. He bathed them with his tears of love. At last, Sri Chaitanya bent down and lifted Adwaita Acharya into his warm embrace. Adwaita, now soaked by the ecstatic tears of the Lord, again fell to his lotus feet in spiritual perturbation. Calming himself, and Adwaita, the Lord sat down as Adwaita's house vibrated with loud exultation. Achyutananda was Adwaita's son. He was a charming and effulgent little child, endowed with extraordinary intelligence and supreme influence. Naked as usual for that age and covered in dust, Achyutananda came running to greet the Lord. His great fortune was that he was Adwaita's son. He was blissful and smiling, for he knew the identity of Lord Chaitanya. He fell at the Lord's feet full of respect. The Lord laughingly took him into his arms, in spite of the dust smeared on his small frame. The Lord said, Achyuta, you know that Adwaita Acharya is also my father. Hence this makes us brothers. Little Achyuta replied, you are the well-wishing friend of all living entities. The Vedas describe that you are the original father of everyone. This greatly pleased and amused the Lord, and he smiled knowingly. The Vaishnavas were amazed at Achyuta's words. They said, these words are not the babblings of a mere child, but actually carry deep import. Achyuta must be a great personality. At this moment, Nityananda Prabhu arrived with all the devotees and intimate servitors of the Lord from Navadip. When the devotees saw their dear Lord, Srivas Pandit and the others began loudly chanting and fell flat on the ground, offering prayers and tears at the Lord's lotus feet. These devotees were as precious to the Lord as his very life, and he lovingly embraced each one of them. The devotees cried out in the pain of ecstasy and separation. Their cries purified the entire earth. To hear pure devotees weeping in love of Krishna can cut asunder the bondage of birth and death of all living entities. This wonderful opportunity was now made available to everyone by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. Even Lord Brahma rarely received such favors. Upon seeing again his beloved associates from Navadip, after what seemed a long absence, Sri Krishna Chaitanya began to dance enraptured, saturated in ecstatic love of himself, for he alone is the Supreme Lord. The devotees began to sing, and the Lord encouraged them with loud exclamations of, "Bol, bol, sing, sing." The Lord caught Nityananda Prabhu by the hand and spun around in ecstatic joy. Stealthily, Adwaita Acharya came up from behind and touched the Lord's feet, placing the dust upon his head. The Lord's dancing postures were enchanting, simultaneously manifested all the different symptoms of devotional perturbation by weeping, shivering, horripilation, mirth, and so on. The movements and nuances of the limbs and different parts of his transcendental body were an expressive composition of some divine love poetry. His arms raised in exultation and chanting Hari, Hari, he enchanted the devotees and submerged them in an ocean of ineffable bliss. The devotees had only just recently been deprived of their Lord's presence, and now, by his mercy, to be again in his company was certainly a cause for extreme exhilaration and celebration. They surrounded their Lord, danced and pranced, oblivious of everything else. They fell on each other, bumped against each other, and rolled on the ground, smearing their bodies with the dust of everyone's feet. One pressed another devotee's feet against his chest and remained saturated in bliss, tears of joy flowing unrestrainedly from his eyes. The devotees could not contain their happiness, having regained their beloved Lord and Master, the Lord of Vaikuntha, dancing free from all care with his associates is indeed an extraordinary sight. Above the sounds of the dancing, the singing of the Lord's name rang out loud and clear. Adwaita Acharya's house resounded with sounds of mirth, of which only Nityananda Prabhu was fully aware. Sri Chaitanya went around embracing his loving associates and infusing them with Krishna Prem. Receiving the Lord's divine touch, the devotees became mad with joy. In a loud voice that resembled the rumbling of thunder, they expressed their boundless bliss. This further increased the pleasure of the others present. As the Lord danced with his associates, Mother Earth seemed to sway and tilt. Nityananda, Adwaita, and all the devotees were caught in a maelstrom of infinite ecstasy, and they freely allowed their limbs and body to express their continual happiness. After a while, the Lord stopped dancing, and entering a mood of divine lordship, he sat down upon the throne of Sri Vishnu. The devotees stood around him in great awe and reverence with folded palms as the Lord began to reveal his real identity as the Supreme Lord. He said, "I am Krishna, Rama, Narayan, and Matsya. I have assumed these incarnations and more. I am Kurma, Varaha, Vamana, Buddha, and I will be Kalki. I am Prishnigarbha and Hayagriva, the Lord, the Supreme Lord of Lords. I am the moon of Nilachal, Lord Jagannath, and I am Kapila and Nrsinga. All living entities, visible and invisible, are my servitors. The Vedas sing of my supramundane excellences, and I am served by the endless planetary systems. I am time, the destroyer of everything except my devotees. All dangers are easily eradicated simply by remembering me. In this way, I rescued Draupadi from great public shame and insult. I also saved the Pandavas from the fire trap in the house of lack. I protected Shiva by slaying the terrible demon Vrikashura. I liberated my servant Gajendra, the elephant, from excruciating death pains. I stood by Prahlad in all his tortures. I protected the cowherd boys from all kinds of harm and attacks. I churned the milk ocean to extract the nectar of immortality. I deprived the demons of the nectar and gave it to the demigods, thus aiding them, thus helping them to victory. I slew the obnoxious demon Kamsa, who was threatening my devotees. I finished the demon King Ravana, destroying his entire race. I lifted Govardhan Hill with my left hand, and I tamed the vicious snake demon Kaliya. I appeared in Satya Yuga to propagate the practice of austerity and meditation, and in Treta Yuga to introduce the performance of sacrifices. In Dwapara Yuga, my purpose was to establish the proper procedures of temple worship. Presently in Kali Yuga, I have come to promulgate the congregational chanting of the holy names of Krishna. Even the Vedas fail to enumerate all my incarnations. In Kali Yuga, by participating in this Sankirtan movement, every sincere soul will taste the nectar of Krishna Prema. This is the reason for my appearance in this yuga. The entire Vedic literature instructs the searching soul to seek my shelter, but I am only to be found in the company of my surrendered devotees. They are everywhere. They are everything to me: father, mother, friend, son, and brother. Although I am absolutely independent, my nature is to be captivated by my devotees' pure love for me. All of you are my eternal associates. All my incarnations are only for your pleasure and protection. Know for certain that I cannot remain even for a moment bereft of your association. Out of his causeless mercy for his devotees and all the living entities, the Lord revealed this confidential knowledge about himself. The devotees were jubilant. They fell flat on the ground, offering obeisances. They were so devotionally perturbed that they were unable to do anything. They prayed and rolled on the ground, relishing the highest ambrosia of Krishna Prema. The Lord's associates were now saturated in Krishna Prema. The Lord's associates were now, the devotees were so devotionally perturbed that they were unable to do anything. They prayed and rolled on the ground, relishing the highest ambrosia of Krishna Prema. The Lord's associates were now saturated in divine nectar. Their previous heartache due to separation from the Lord was now cured. The compassionate Lord is expert in alleviating everyone's grief. So why should suffering humanity not take shelter of the Lord? Sri Gaurachandra is an ocean of mercy. He always discounts the wayward soul's faults and sees only to his goodness. Thereafter, withdrawing his mood of supreme opulence and absolute autocracy, the Lord returned to his normal self, calm and composed, and he led everyone down to the Ganga to bathe. He played and frolicked in the waters with the devotees. Upon returning, he watered the tulsi plant and circumambulated her, indicating that the accompanying devotee should follow his activities. Then they all went to the temple room, offered obeisances to Sri Vishnu, and circumambulated the Lord. Sri Gaurahari called everyone, and they sat down together to eat. The Lord sat down beside Nityananda amidst the happy and cheerful devotees. The Lord was the cynosure of everyone, with his smiling face and golden body covered with sandalwood paste. The scene of the devotees sitting around Sri Krishna Chaitanya with Sri Nityananda Prabhu sitting beside him was an exact replica of Krishna and Balaram sitting in the forest of Vrindaban, surrounded by their cowherd boyfriends, all having a picnic with their packed lunches. Who can fully describe this wonderful happening? As soon as the Lord had finished and left, the devotees jumped up and grabbed the remnants from his plate. Even the old men acted like little boys, such as the transformation that takes place due to contact with the Lord's divine potency. One who hears these pastimes of the Lord and his associates, their reunion, Sankirtan, and eating together, will certainly attain Sri Chaitanya's mercy and relish Krishna Prem. Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Nityananda Prabhu are my life and soul. I, Vrindaban Das, humbly offer this song at their lotus feet. So, this is describing the meeting of the Lord with his devotees in Sri Adwaita Acharya's house. Of course, we've heard expressed in different ways in the Chaitanya Charitamrita by Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj. But Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj is often saying that Vrindaban Das is Veda Vyas of Chaitanya Leela. At the same time, we accept and hear the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita is expressing the highest Siddhanta relating to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's activities, his pastimes. So now I'll sing Hari Haraya. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Jadavaya Nama. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Jadavaya Nama. Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama. Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama. Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan. Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan. Giridhari Gopinatha Marana Mohan. Giridhari Gopinatha Marana Mohan. Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Adwaita Chandra. Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Adwaita Chandra. Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Janardan Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath. Jai Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath. Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath. Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath. Echai Gosai Kori Charana Bandhan. Echai Gosai Kori Charana Bandhan. Jaoite Vignana Shabista Puran. Jaoite Vignana Shabista Puran. Echai Gosai Jar Mui Taradas. Echai Gosai Jar Mui Taradas. Tasabar Padarenu Mora Panchagras. Tasabar Padarenu Mora Panchagras. Kader Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanibas. Sadev Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanivas Janame Janame More Abilas Janame Janame More Abilas Ejai Gosai Jabe Braje Koilabas Ejai Gosai Jabe Braje Koilabas Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Korila Prakash Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Korila Prakash Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindaban Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindaban Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Manjai Aman Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Manjai Aman Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyan Guru Vaishnava Padma Koriyan Harinam Sankirtana Kohe Naratamudan Harinam Sankirtana Kohe Naratamudan Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo. Jai Saparikara Shishi Guru Varanga Gandharvika Giridhari Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Nirmal Acharya Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajaka Charyasta Tara Sadashri Srimad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravansaka Charyashta Tara Sadashri Shrimad Srila Bhakti Rakshira Dev Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Jai Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Rupanuga Guru Varga ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath. Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasha Raghunath Sad Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Prem Sigo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Adwaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Vishvavarenya Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Shri Navadip Dham ki jai. Shri Dham Mayapur ki jai. Saparshada Shri Nityananda Prabhu ki jai. Saparshada Shriman Mahaprabhu ki jai. Shri Koladvip ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat ki jai. Soquel Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Seva Ashram ki jai. Ganga Devi ki jai. Tulasi Maharani ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Vrindaban Dham ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Govardhan. Shyam Kuna Radha Kunda Kalindi Yamuna Jo ki jai. Shri Purushottam ki jai. Baladev Subhadra Jagannath Jo ki jai. Bhakti Vigna Vinashaya Shri Nishingadev ki jai. Bhakta Prabhara Shri Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. All the assembled devotees ki jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo.
Srila Bhakti Pavan Janardan Maharaj